always just be that one then?
At least in the past it has been.
Okay. Well, we'll do our best.
Yeah.
I mean, I followed all the steps, so. And then after the service ends,
Yeah, we just
stop.
Can do that.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, good.
I'll
Thank
maybe
you.
see if I can get Sharon to move over here closer to it.
Right. Yeah, that would help.
I'm sure she will.
Now I got to find out about the telephone radio broadcast. See if that's on.
Well, that doesn't. Ushers do that.
I hope they know how to do that. 'Cause no one's ever told me.
if you're a guest here, welcome. If you've been here for many, many years, welcome home. Today we will be celebrating the sacrament of Holy Communion. If you're new to Grace, we do it by way of the ushers will guide you forward towards the altar railing where you will kneel if you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable kneeling, of course don't kneel. You will receive a piece of bread, and afterwards you will receive a cup of wine or grape juice if you would prefer that. If you are not in shape to make it all the way to the altar railing, give one of the ushers a shout and we will come and make our way back to you. A couple of announcements I have for you this morning. I'm looking at this cute little bulletin we have for you. We're being very good stewards of the paper and the resources that we have around here, and we decided to shorten this up, so it's very cute. But I'm finding that it's missing a couple things, namely the prayers of intercession. So I think we're going to have those right after the offertory hymn, which I will announce that at the time. So just please follow along, and I will try and direct you as best I can. Also, at the end, after the communion hymns, I'll give the blessing and a benediction, and then we'll sing the hymn Thanks Be to God, which is also found in that red pamphlet that you have there. An announcement that I have for you, thank you to our radio sponsor. For people at home who are not here, welcome to worship this morning as we gather in the name of our Father. Thank you for the radio sponsor, Doris Grunwald, in honor of family July birthdays. Also, congratulations to the Waggers on their new baby named Ezra J. Wagger, son of Jacob and Whitney. Congratulations to them on their new baby. Also coming up, mark your calendars. We're going to play some golf, y'all. The 4 Mission Golf Tournament. And as I thought about that this morning, I thought, why is it called 4 Mission Golf Tournament? 4, it's probably because Pastor Kendall plays in the tournament, and he's also always yelling, 4, because he's not a very good golfer. And so there's that. So please come to our mission. Even if you don't golf, come out and support the fund that we're raising. It is with great sadness that I announce the death of Sylvia Lehman. She died on Saturday morning. So keep her and her family in your prayers. Also, I don't normally make an announcement about weather, but I was just taking a peek at the weather today. It's going to be extremely hot. So take cover, drink plenty of fluids, find some shade or some air conditioning. Okay? I care about your spiritual health as well as your physical. Okay? So please do that. At this time, I invite you to please stand and greet your neighbor sharing the gesture of God's blessing. Our opening hymn is LW 532, Gather and Sing.
Thank
mercy delights us, and the world longs for your loving care. Hear the cries of everyone in need, and turn our hearts to love our neighbors with the love of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. You may be seated. We invite forward our readers.
First lesson for today is from Lutheran chapter 30, verses 9 through 14. And the Lord your God will make you abundantly prosperous in all your undertakings, in the fruit of your body, in the fruit of your livestock, and in the fruit of your soil. For the Lord will again take delight in prospering you, just as he delighted in prospering your ancestors. When you obey the Lord your God by observing his commandments and decrees that are written in the book of the law, because you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Surely this commandment that I am commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor is it too far away. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us and get it for us, so that we may hear it and observe it? Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will cross to the other side of the sea for us and get it for us so that we may hear it and observe it? No, the word is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart for you to observe. The second reading is from Psalm 25, verses 1 through 10. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. O my God, in you I trust. Do not let me be put to shame. Do not let my enemies exalt over me. Do not let those who wait for you be put to shame, and let them be ashamed who are wantonly treacherous. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth, and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all day long. Be mindful of your mercy, O Lord, and of your steadfast love, for they have been from of old. Do not remember the sins of my youth or my transgressions. According to your steadfast love, remember me for your goodness. According to your steadfast love, remember me for your goodness' sake, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore, he instructs sinners in the way. He leads the humble in what is right and teaches the humble his way. All the paths of the Lord are steadfast love and faithfulness for those who keep his covenant and his decrees. Here ends the reading. Please stand for the reading of the gospel.
Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And he said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on him. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? He said, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." The gospel of our Lord. Please be seated. To tell you the truth, I am fascinated by technology. In the 21st century, technology has become pretty common. In fact, technology has become so widespread that it would be odd to find someone who doesn't use technology at all. One of the greatest technological advances that we have had in the last 20 years are smartphones that allow us to do things we probably never imagined, like send photos, send emails, and even save email drafts so you can stop and think about sending that nasty email to your mother-in-law before you actually send it. Today, the standard for technology is the question of how user-friendly is it? In other words, how easy is it to use? Today, in the 30th chapter of Deuteronomy, Moses is arguing that the commandment to love God with all your heart is a commandment that is very user-friendly. He says, "Surely this commandment that I am commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor is it too far away. You don't have to go up to heaven to observe it, nor do you have to cross a great sea. For the word is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart for you to observe." Moses is saying that loving God with your whole heart doesn't require great skill or training. It doesn't require you to go to great lengths to observe. Loving the Lord with your whole heart is a commandment that is user-friendly because we are all capable. But now I want to turn to our New Testament reading. Our story begins with a lawyer who is testing Jesus. This man is not a lawyer the way that we think of a lawyer today. This man is an expert in the Old Testament law. The lawyer may call Jesus teacher, but is really putting himself in the position of grading Jesus' answer. The lawyer asks, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" To which Jesus responds, "What is written in the law?" The lawyer says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Finally, Jesus grades the lawyer's response by saying, "You have given the right answer." But despite Jesus' answer, the lawyer asks another question, an important question at that. This question prompts Jesus to answer using the parable of the Good Samaritan. The question that the lawyer asks is, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus responds by telling the story of a man on the road to Jericho who was robbed, stripped, beaten, and left for dead. First a priest passed by and then a Levite. But finally a good Samaritan went to him, bandaging his wounds, bringing him to town, and paying an innkeeper to take care of him. Once Jesus finishes the story, he asks the lawyer, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to this man?" To which the lawyer responded, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus replied, "Go and do likewise." The lawyer's answer is the key to the parable. neighbor is about what you actually do for a person in need. But there is more to be said. You see, the lawyer's inquiry of who is my neighbor is a reasonable one, for it is a question we are faced with each and every day. I think what the lawyer is really asking is, to whom must I do neighborly acts? And is it really possible to love everyone? I can't blame the lawyer for asking. For wouldn't it be helpful to know the limits on neighborliness? Wouldn't it be helpful to know who we have to serve and who we can simply pass right by? In Hebrew, the word neighbor means someone close. Fellow family member or fellow tribesperson. In Hebrew, neighbor basically means your fellow Israelite. But this answer that the lawyer gives Jesus comes from Leviticus. In this context, the word neighbor doesn't mean just family and community members, but the unknown alien in your midst. Don't just love God and love your neighbor, but love all people regardless of status or identity. You see, we are good at serving those of our same family, status, community, and background. We are good at serving those who are similar to us and familiar to us. But what this parable challenges us to do is to serve the other, the unknown, the alien in our midst. This wounded man is totally anonymous and wholly other. After he is stripped of his clothing, which might have given some idea of his status, he is left truly anonymous. The Good Samaritan tends to his wounds, brings him to an inn, and as if the story isn't already stretching believability, he gives the innkeeper a blank check. Now, usually this parable is given a moral reading. Well, if a lousy Samaritan can be a good neighbor, I suppose I can be one too. But that is not what Jesus meant. Being a neighbor is not simply a matter of doing good, but identifying with the last, lost, least, and the little. So you see, brothers and sisters, both our Old and New Testament readings today serve as warning not to interpret God's commandments too strictly. For as these two passages show us, if we interpret God's commandments too strictly, we can very easily fail to carry out our Christian duties, to love and serve those in need. In the case of Moses, he follows a very strict interpretation of the law. To Moses, following the command to love God with your whole heart and soul is easy. It's user-friendly. Because all we have to do is make a small change within ourselves and align our hearts to love God. But not once does Moses consider the neighbor. Not once does Moses stop to think, maybe loving God has something to do with loving others. Loving God's creation. Loving my neighbor. The priest and the Levite make a similar mistake, interpreting the word neighbor too strictly, causing them to pass by a man who's been robbed, stripped, beaten, and left for dead on the side of the road. First, the priest encounters this man and he asks himself, is this man a neighbor to me? Is he a fellow Israelite? The answer is, Of course, no. So he walks right on by in obedience to the commandment. Then the Levite walks by and does the same thing. But then a Samaritan walks by. And instead of adhering to a set of laws, this Samaritan sees the man in his need and picks him up, brings him to an inn, and pays an innkeeper to take care of him. Now, the story of the Good Samaritan defines our calling as Christians. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind is to reflect God's mercy in responding to one's neighbor. The story of the Good Samaritan also redefines the limits on neighborliness. A neighbor is not necessarily someone who is the same race as you or religion. A neighbor is not necessarily someone who lives in your neighborhood. Neighbor, according to the parable of the Good Samaritan, is anyone who is in need. No matter who you are or where you are, when you encounter someone in need, you are called to love and serve that person. So as you go, brothers and sisters, go in peace, knowing God's deep and abiding love for you. And go out as good Samaritans, loving and serving, reflecting God's mercy and love everywhere you go. Amen. Our hymn of the day is ELW 708.